20 years ago, Sophia and her best friend Lara married into the Kim family. Sophia married the elder brother, a doctor. Lara married the younger brother, a teacher. For most of their lives, the two women toiled for this household, taking care of the elders, managing housework, never complaining, always enduring, until one day, an earthquake struck, burying them beneath the rubble. The Kim brothers, however, chose to rescue their childhood sweetheart instead. Sophia and Lara died in despair, but when they opened their eyes again, the two best friends had been reborn into the year they had just married into the Kim family. Sophia, you're finally awake. As Sophia opened her eyes, she met the worried face of her dearest friend, Lara. No, more precisely, it was a younger version of Lara. The tickets for the southbound train are already bought. We leave in 7 days. The two locked eyes for a long while. There was no excitement, no hatred, just calm, quiet understanding. Not a word was spoken. Before they could discuss further, 2 bowls of dark, murky medicinal soup were placed before them. The bitter smell immediately assaulted their senses. Since you're awake, drink the medicine. You've both been married for over 6 months. How come neither of your bellies is showing any signs? The one scowling and glaring while holding the bowls was their mother-in-law. She had long resented her daughters-in-law for failing to bear children for the Kim family. The nauseating smell made Sophia's brow involuntarily furrow. Her throat tightened. She had drunk more than enough of this bitter medicine in her past life. But in those 6 months of marriage, Victor had rarely spent the night in her room. Even when she begged him to explain to his mother, he had coldly replied, "Haven't we slept together?" Sophia touched her abdomen. She was already 2 months pregnant. But in this life, she didn't want to explain, nor did she want the child. She shook her head and refused the medicine. Lara stared at the bowl, expression cold. What use is just drinking this stuff? Can I get pregnant on my own? Take it away. I'm not drinking it. Seeing her daughter's-in-law's defiance, Kim mother's face turned red with rage. Ungrateful brats. I went through all that trouble to brew this medicine, and neither of you appreciate it. Just then, the hospital room door burst open with a loud bang. Seeing who it was, Kim mother immediately looked relieved, as if she'd found her pillar of support. My son, look at your wife. I was worried she might catch cold from falling in the water, so I kindly brewed her some herbal medicine, and she doesn't even appreciate it. Victor entered, face dark, voice laced with anger. Sophia! Sophia shrank back almost imperceptibly. Even now, she still couldn't look directly into Victor's angry eyes. When she finally looked up again and saw him, she was momentarily dazed. The man before her wore a white uniform, his face stern, lips pressed tightly together, his entire being radiating an aura of unquestionable authority. This was the man she had loved for 20 years in her previous life. Drink the medicine now, and then apologize to Roxana. Victor, the youngest chief physician at the People's Hospital, knew full well that such herbal remedies only nourished the body, they didn't actually improve fertility. Still, he forced Sophia to drink them, just to silence his mother. Roxana, Sophia's heart tightened painfully at the mention of the name. She and the Kim brothers had grown up together. Ever since she returned, she had effortlessly drawn all their attention to herself. It was Roxana who had grabbed her while doing laundry. Sophia had fainted and fallen into the river. If Lara hadn't arrived in time, she would have drowned. Sophia felt a biting cold seep through her body, her abdomen aching terribly. After a few deep breaths, she forced herself to speak. I won't apologize. Roxana pushed me into the water. Victor raised his brows, surprised at her boldness. Now you're lying? I've watched Roxana grow up. She wouldn't lie to me. He paused, his sharp gaze sweeping over her, as if measuring something. Roxana is my little sister. Of course I care for her more. You married me, so that makes you her older sister. Stop acting like a jealous little girl. Sophia opened her mouth, then gave up. A self-mocking smile crept onto her face. They were leaving in 7 days anyway, unable to bear seeing her best friend wronged. Lara spoke up in defense. I saw Roxana push Sophia with my own eyes. A familiar voice growled from the doorway. Who doesn't know you two are best friends? What tricks are you playing now? Lara looked up and saw her husband, Romeo, wheeling Roxana in. Roxana sat in a wheelchair, offering a weak smile. Victor, Romeo, please don't be angry. I suppose we've neglected our sisters-in-law lately. We'll include them in everything from now on. As she spoke, Roxana trembled slightly, tears brimming in her eyes as if she had suffered the world's greatest grievance. Seeing her like this, both brothers immediately frowned, and Kim mother looked on, eyes brimming with pity. Romeo lifted his chin and glared at Lara. Been treating you too nicely lately? You think you can compete with Roxana now? Youthful and full of pride, Romeo had always had life go his way. People begged him, never the other way around. Lara had chased after him for 3 years before finally marrying into the Kim family. But even after the wedding, Romeo never once touched her. Lara turned away, saying nothing. The burning love in her heart had long turned to ashes, cold and lifeless. Suddenly, Roxana cried out, clutching her head in pain. The two brothers panicked, pushing her off to see a doctor. Watching this picture-perfect scene, Sophia and Lara exchanged bitter smiles. Moments later, only the two of them remained in the hospital room. I want a divorce. The words came from both women simultaneously. At Sophia's insistence, they processed the discharge paperwork and began preparing for their departure in 7 days. They had spent all their money on train tickets and had nowhere else to go. So they returned to the Kim residence. Kim's father had died young. To keep their mother from feeling lonely, the brothers hadn't split the household after marrying. They still lived in the same courtyard with Kim's mother, each couple having 2 rooms. Sophia and Lara each went back to their rooms to start packing. At dinner, Lara specially made brown sugar eggs for her best friend. Sophia, you fell into the water and your body's weak. Eat something to nourish yourself. In this era, brown sugar was a rare commodity. Sophia couldn't remember a time when her family had any. She was still puzzled when she suddenly noticed that Lara's silver earrings, her constant accessory, were gone. Sophia immediately understood. Looking at her dear friend, her eyes welled up with tears. Lara, that was the only keepsake your mother left you. Lara's eyes turned red as well. Sophia, have you forgotten? You've been suffering ever since you fell into the water. Sophia remembered. Not long after that incident, she had a miscarriage. She had never been able to conceive again. The doctor said her body had been fundamentally damaged. When Victor and Romeo came back supporting Roxana, Lara was feeding Sophia brown sugar stewed eggs. Seeing Sophia discharged from the hospital, Victor was surprised. Why didn't you tell me you were leaving the hospital? Sophia sneered inwardly. Victor worked at the People's Hospital. If he truly cared, how could he not have known? And even if she had told him, so what? Would he have left Roxana to accompany her? Obviously, that was impossible. As long as Roxana was around, she would never be the one he chose. She had waited 20 years. She didn't want to wait anymore. Sophia didn't answer. She lowered her head and took a sip of the brown sugar water. Looking at the stewed egg in the enamel mug, Roxana's eyes turned red with jealousy. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. Sister-in-law, you're really blessed. I heard brown sugar stewed egg is especially nourishing for women. Victor frowned deeply and ordered Sophia, if you won't apologize, then let the stewed egg serve as compensation to Roxana. Sophia was furious. Why? Lara made this for me. And she had even pawned the silver earrings her mother left her to get it. Victor was surprised. His wife, who always obeyed him, had actually dared to defy him in public. His eyes turned icy cold at once, and even his voice carried anger. It's just a bit of brown sugar water. As my wife, how can you be so petty? As soon as he spoke, he reached out to grab the enamel mug, but Lara dodged him. Victor's hand grasped at empty air. Just as he was about to explode, Romeo growled, Lara, give it to Roxana now. Why are you being so unreasonable? Meeting her husband's cold stare, Lara's heart clenched violently. Romeo was one of the first young and promising lecturers to be retained by Y City University. He was accomplished and talented. The moment Lara first saw Romeo, she had fallen hopelessly in love with him. Their relationship had always been one-sided, Lara chasing him. Everyone knew she loved Romeo like he was her life. But after the despair she had faced in the ruins of her past life, her heart was already dead. Lara said coldly, if you want it, buy your own. I've never seen someone using other people's things to curry favor. Mr. Kim, is this what your university teaches? Romeo froze for a moment, faced with Lara's cold expression. He was momentarily speechless. It was Roxana who gently tugged on his sleeve and said in a soft, sorrowful voice, Romeo, if sister-in-law doesn't want to give it, then I won't take it. I guess I'm just not destined for such blessings. I'll leave, so I don't become a burden. As she finished, Roxana pretended to leave, but Victor pulled her back. The two brothers exchanged a glance. Romeo stepped forward and tightly restrained Lara. She couldn't move, and the enamel mug was snatched away by Victor before Sophia could stop him. The mug was handed to Roxana. She gave Sophia and Lara a smug glance. Then, lifting her hand, she dumped the still half-full stewed egg onto the floor. Next, Roxana clutched her hand like a frightened little white rabbit, eyes brimming with tears. Victor, Romeo, Roxana didn't mean it. I'm so stupid. Aren't I? Sob. I shouldn't have come. I'm just a burden to you all. Roxana, are you okay? The two men rushed forward almost at the same time, checking Roxana's hands carefully. There was a faint red mark across Roxana's pale hand. It was too hot. I couldn't hold on to it, Roxana pouted, looking utterly aggrieved. It's okay. Tomorrow I'll go to the supply store and buy a pound of brown sugar. Sophia can make some for you. Victor comforted Roxana in a low voice, while Sophia, mentioned by name, watched the scene coldly. She was reminded of the time during her period when she had begged Victor to buy her just half a pound of brown sugar. Instead, he had scolded her with a stern face. Why are you so delicate? We've got tons of female co-workers at the hospital. I've never seen one who insists on drinking brown sugar water during her period. Mom's right. You're just greedy. The pain came back in waves, leaving Sophia breathless. Seeing Roxana's injury, Romeo turned to glare at Lara with displeasure. Lara, you knew it was hot. Why didn't you warn Roxana? Lara only looked at the broken bowl of sweet egg soup spilled on the ground, her face full of regret. She had seen it clearly. Roxana had done it on purpose. Faced with Romeo's accusation, Lara only felt drained. She gave a mocking smile and couldn't be bothered to explain, because she knew, even if she did, Romeo wouldn't believe her. As Victor went inside to get the first aid kit, Roxana walked up to Sophia and leaned in, lowering her voice with a provocative smile. Sophia, I'm not the least bit interested in anything you've touched, but don't think you can have it either. Sophia smirked sarcastically. You're not interested in the things I've used? Yet you don't seem to mind the man I've used. You, Roxana was furious. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Victor returning with the first aid kit, and immediately shifted into a frail and pitiful expression. Victor, I feel so dizzy. I can tell my sisters-in-law don't welcome me. I shouldn't stay here anymore. At that moment, it was as if two sharp blades stabbed straight into the hearts of Sophia and Lara. They hadn't done anything, yet they were always the ones to suffer the blame and the wrath. Sophia and Lara exchanged a look, both scoffing bitterly. Then Romeo's low voice broke the silence. Roxana, what nonsense are you saying? That old room of yours has been empty too long. It's uninhabitable now. Why don't you stay with my mom? Roxana furrowed her lovely brows, looking troubled. Forget it. I'm afraid I'll disturb Auntie. Sophia sneered inwardly. She wasn't afraid of disturbing Kim Mother. She looked down on her. In their past life, Sophia had once overheard Roxana mocking Kim Mother behind her back for smelling like an old woman. No way I'm living with that hag, she'd said. Victor remained silent for a long while, seemingly deep in thought. Then he spoke quietly. Roxana, I'll take you to the new house. With that, he helped Roxana up and led her away, without sparing Sophia so much as a glance. Sophia understood. This was a warning from Victor. In the past, she would have been terrified and hurried to apologize. But now, all she felt was exhaustion. 2 months ago, Victor's workplace had allocated him a new apartment. Sophia had begged him several times to move there, but he always refused. Yet now, another woman was granted that place without the slightest resistance. In her previous life, Sophia never got to move into that new apartment, not even until her death. She let out a bitter smile, seeing Victor walk away with Roxana. Romeo was about to follow when he suddenly stopped mid-step. Remembering something, he threw a woven sack toward Lara. Roxana fell in the water and caught a chill. Wash her dirty clothes. Without waiting for a response, Romeo turned and walked off. Lara stared at his retreating figure and let out a cold laugh. She gave the woven sack by her feet a hard kick. The two men had spent the entire night with Roxana, neither of them came back. Both Sophia and Lara let out a breath of relief and decided to sleep together. Sophia. I spoke with my cousin on the phone. He's running a clothing business in S City. When he heard we were heading there, he was thrilled. Everything's been arranged. The two sisters whispered under the covers, dreaming about the future. The gloom brought by the two men was swept away. And that night, they slept peacefully. The next day, Sophia didn't wake until noon. Lara had already gone to work at the textile mill. Sophia got up and marked a cross on the calendar, then glanced over at the tape recorder on the cabinet. It was part of her dowry from her father. After a moment's thought, she wandered through several shops in town before finally finding a blank cassette tape. When she returned home, she found Victor sitting in a chair. As soon as Sophia walked in, Victor stood and handed her a box. Didn't you always want this? I bought it for you. Sophia looked down. It was a box of friendship snow cream. Once, this might have touched her, but after everything in her past life, she no longer had any expectations of this man. She casually set the snow cream on the cabinet and replied indifferently, "Thanks." Victor frowned slightly. The woman before him felt different from before, but he couldn't quite say what had changed. Shaking his head, he got down to business. Sophia, Roxana doesn't have a job. That's not sustainable. He paused and glanced at Sophia, as though waiting for her to pick up the conversation. But Sophia acted as if she hadn't heard a word. Victor's expression darkened. He furrowed his brow and said in his usual commanding tone, "Here's the plan. You'll give up your job at the broadcasting station and let Roxana have it. I'm a chief physician. Do you really think I can't afford to support you?" Sophia felt a tight pain in her chest. That was exactly what happened in her previous life. Victor had traded her iron rice bowl job for a box of snow cream. Seeing Sophia remain expressionless, Victor added, "Sophia, you know Roxana's parents did a lot for our Kim family." Sophia sneered inwardly. So what? That meant she had to sacrifice her job as repayment? The Kim and Bai families were neighbors. Kim's father had passed away early, and Roxana's parents had helped the Kim family out many times. With only Kim's mother working, the young Victor and Romeo were often underfed. Roxana's parents pitied them and would share food. 3 years ago, Victor and Romeo had stood helplessly as Roxana's family was sent away to the countryside. At the time, both brothers had just started their careers and had no power or influence. They couldn't help. Both had been racked with guilt and remorse. Then, 2 months ago, Victor finally tracked down Roxana's whereabouts. The Kim brothers pulled every string they could to bring Roxana back to Y City. When they saw the bruised and battered Roxana, both men were immediately overwhelmed with emotion. At first, Sophia and Lara had pitied her. Roxana cried to Lara that she didn't even have a proper piece of clothing to wear. Feeling sorry for her, Lara stayed up late using scraps from the textile mill to make her a new dress. Roxana had cheerfully accepted it at the time, but then turned around and complained to Romeo. Holding the dress, now cut into tatters, she sobbed like a tragic heroine. "Brother Huijin, I know sister-in-law doesn't like me, but how could she give me such a rag? Isn't that just humiliating me?" Romeo flew into a rage, lashing out at Lara with a tirade of accusations. No matter how she explained, he simply wouldn't believe her. Sophia hadn't fared any better. Likewise, Victor always sided with Roxana without question. Seeing Sophia silent, Victor cautiously tested the waters. "Sophia." Without looking at him, Sophia replied calmly, "All right." Victor froze, seemingly surprised by her reaction. Whatever speech he had prepared caught in his throat. After a moment of dazed silence, Victor seemed to arrive at some conclusion. He nodded, somewhat pleased. "Sophia, you've finally grown up. Now you're worthy of being my wife." Sophia raised her eyes to meet his. "But I have one condition." Victor, in a seemingly generous mood, waved a hand. "Go ahead. Return my dowry. I don't have a job anymore, and I won't touch your salary. If I can hold on to what my father left me, I'll feel more at ease." Victor's face stiffened the moment she mentioned his salary. He lowered his head guiltily. Sophia's dowry had always been in Kim mother's possession. No one knew what Victor had said, but the old woman begrudgingly returned it. Sophia clutched the 500 yuan tightly. Her heart felt unbearably heavy. Her mother had passed away early. Her father had died not long after her marriage. That 500 yuan was the last bit of confidence her father had left her. Victor didn't even stay for dinner. He hurried off in a rush, undoubtedly to share the good news with Roxana. When Lara came home from work and learned that Sophia had given up her job, she was furious. "Sophia! How could you give up your iron rice bowl for that cheap woman? That's letting her off too easy." Sophia, unhurried, was calmly counting her money with a faint smile. "Lara, did you forget? The job at the broadcast station won't last more than a few years. Might as well trade it for something solid. With this 500 yuan, we'll have our startup money for S-City." The two best friends whispered to each other for a while before returning to their own rooms. When Romeo came home, Lara was absorbed in a book. So engrossed she didn't even notice him. He glanced at the cover and sneered. "This is a book on fashion design. You're just a textile factory girl with no education. Can you even understand this stuff? You think you're some cultured person like Roxana?" Romeo, one of the first university students and now a teacher, had always looked down on Lara's background, convinced she was uneducated. But Lara had been an excellent student since childhood. If her parents hadn't died suddenly, she never would have had to drop out and join a textile mill. Lara felt a sharp pang in her heart, but said nothing and kept reading. Romeo frowned. "Why haven't you been bringing me lunch lately?" The textile mill's cafeteria was known for its good food. In the past, Lara would save the best meals for Romeo, packing them carefully in a lunchbox, wrapping it in her padded coat to keep it warm, and cycling 6 li to deliver it to him. Then she'd ride all the way back and gnaw on cold cornbread alone. Due to prolonged irregular meals and cold food, Lara's stomach often ached in dull waves. Later, she learned that all those lovingly saved meals had ended up in Roxana's stomach. Thinking of that, Lara's expression turned ice cold. She wasn't going to be that foolish again. Without even looking up, Lara replied indifferently, busy with urgent orders. No time to deliver food. Her casual tone caught Romeo off guard. Lately, he'd been feeling that Lara had somehow changed. She used to treat his words like sacred law. He frowned slightly, studying her face as if trying to read something from it. After a long pause, Romeo took the book from her hands and placed it on the bedside table. Then he took her hand gently, his tone unexpectedly soft. "Lara, try to bring lunch tomorrow. Roxana's appetite hasn't been great lately. She can't eat much. Only your cafeteria food is still palatable to her." Lara coldly pulled her hand away and interrupted him without hesitation. "Where do I send it? Straight to your bed? What nonsense are you spouting now?" Romeo was getting annoyed. He had already humbled himself to coax her. What more did she want? Such harsh words, clearly. She was jealous of Roxana again. Thinking of this, Romeo growled impatiently. "How many times do I have to tell you? My brother and I treat Roxana well because the Bai family helped ours. Now her parents are gone. She's all alone. How can we just stand by?" Lara let out a cold laugh. "My parents are gone too. Am I not pitiful?" Romeo was momentarily speechless, lips twitching as if to say something, only to mutter quietly, "You're different." Yes, different indeed. With just a beckon from Roxana, the two brothers would go through fire and water for her. But Sophia and Lara? They could only lick their wounds in silence. Some women, even without husbands, were showered with double the affection. Some women had husbands, but might as well have none. The next day, Sophia and Lara handed in their resignation letters to their supervisors. By the time all the formalities were wrapped up, the sun was already beginning to set. When Lara returned home, she saw Romeo holding an iron box, pulling something from it. Her heart leapt to her throat. The train tickets were still inside. She rushed over and grabbed the box, opening it to check. Seeing the tickets were still there, she let out a quiet sigh of relief. Only then did she notice what Romeo had taken out. He was clutching a wad of fabric ration coupons, trying to hide it. Seeing Lara's anxious look, Romeo grew annoyed. "I'm just taking a few fabric coupons. Roxana's starting work at the broadcast station. She needs to look presentable so people won't look down on her. Look at how stingy you are. It's so petty." Lara nodded indifferently and turned to leave. That night, just as she was drifting off to sleep, she felt a pair of large hands reach over her. She instantly jolted awake, her body stiffening. Romeo hadn't left. In the past, Romeo had never initiated intimacy. The few times it happened were all because Lara had begged for it. Lara turned her back to him and said coldly, "It's my time of the month." The man behind her fell still. After a long while, his breathing evened, he had fallen asleep. When Lara woke the next morning, Romeo was gone. She breathed a sigh of relief. There were only 3 days left before they were leaving. She and Sophia decided to go shopping at the Supply and Marketing Cooperative to buy some essentials. After visiting several stores, they finally bought everything they needed. When the two women stepped back into the courtyard, they were met with a harmonious scene. Roxana was sweetly serving food to Victor and Romeo, and she placed a large piece of chicken into Kim Mother's bowl. Kim Mother patted Roxana's hand with a look of deep satisfaction. Victor and Romeo looked at Roxana with unmistakable tenderness. Roxana was the first to spot them and walked over to Sophia with a grateful expression. "Sister-in-law, thank you for giving me your job. I made chicken soup, come have some." She bustled about like the true mistress of the household. When Sophia didn't move, Victor's face immediately darkened. "Sophia, Roxana made this chicken soup especially to thank you. Aren't you going to have some?" Noticing the faint red strands floating in the soup, Sophia's lips curled into a smirk. Roxana still couldn't hide her intentions. Could she? Under Roxana's watchful gaze, Sophia drank a full bowl of the soup. She didn't miss the flicker of malice in Roxana's eyes. 10 minutes later, Sophia clutched her abdomen, her forehead beaded with sweat. Lara, always watching her best friend closely, cried out in concern. "Sophia, what's wrong?" Seeing his wife in pain, Victor felt an odd pang in his chest. Just as he was about to check on her, Roxana's aggrieved voice cut in. "Sister-in-law, what are you trying to say? You just drank my chicken soup and now your stomach hurts. Are you accusing me of poisoning it?" As she spoke, tears streamed down her face, a perfect picture of pitiful innocence. Victor paused, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Sophia with suspicion. Roxana sniffled and continued. "Sister-in-law, I know you're unhappy about giving up your job, but everyone drank the soup, and we're all fine, so why is it only you who's?" Victor's gaze turned cold, and his voice was even colder. "Sophia, what are you pretending for this time?" "Ah!" Roxana suddenly let out a cry of pain. "What's wrong, Roxana?" The eyes of Kim Mother and both sons immediately shifted to Roxana. She clutched her leg dramatically. "I'm fine, Victor, really." Victor's tone brooked no refusal. "Let me see." Only then did Roxana reluctantly lift her pant leg, revealing a slender, fair calf with a faint red mark, so small it could barely be seen unless you looked very closely. Kim Mother rolled her eyes at Sophia and chided Victor. "Roxana got hurt gathering firewood on the mountain just to make chicken soup for your wife. She didn't even want me to tell you. Some people not only don't appreciate it, they try to frame her." Victor's anger flared even more. "Sophia, apologize to Roxana." Sophia was pale as a sheet, her lower abdomen twisted in pain, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, Lara exclaimed, "Sophia is bleeding." Victor cast only a glance, his brow wrinkling with disgust. "It's just her period. Why be so dramatic? As if I don't already know whether you can get pregnant." Sophia's hand tightened over her lower abdomen. With great difficulty, she forced out the words. "Victor, can you take me to the hospital?" Victor felt instantly annoyed. "Go to the hospital for a little cramp? Don't you know how tight medical resources are? You're a doctor's wife, how can your sense of social responsibility be so low?" Sophia knew Victor was on night duty that evening. Taking her to the hospital would have been on the way. And yet, he still refused. Victor stood up without looking at her and instructed Romeo. "Romeo, Roxana's leg can't be delayed. I'll go back to the hospital and get a wheelchair. Keep an eye on her." The hospital wasn't far from the Kim home. The round trip took only 15 minutes. Victor returned in the hospital's car. Along with a nurse, he and Romeo worked together to lift Roxana into the wheelchair, pushed her to the car, and helped her in. Throughout the entire process, Roxana didn't take a single step. As their eyes met, Roxana flashed a provocative smile at Sophia. The nurse noticed the pain on Sophia's face and suggested, "Dr. Kim, your wife looks like she's in more serious condition. Should we take her along for a checkup?" Victor replied coldly, "No need. It's just cramps. No need to waste medical resources." The young nurse wanted to say more, but fell silent under Victor's frosty glare. Sophia could only watch helplessly as Victor walked away, leaving for good. The last trace of affection in her heart vanished. Lara helped Sophia out the door. They borrowed a cart from a neighbor, and a kind soul helped them push it to the hospital. Sophia could feel the tiny, not yet formed life slipping away from inside her. A single tear slid down her cheek. At last, she could leave without regrets. But why did it still hurt so much? Sophia was discharged 2 days later. There was only 1 day left before they would leave for S-City. She sat quietly in the broadcasting room, waiting. Sure enough, after a while, Roxana arrived. She took the job offer letter from Sophia's hand, her pride barely hidden even as her words dripped with false modesty. Sister-in-law, thank you so much. I just casually mentioned I envied your job, and Victor took it to heart and asked you to give it up for me. I really feel bad. Sophia gave her a calm look. Roxana, Victor and Romeo treat you well out of gratitude to the Bai family. It's not because they love you. Roxana's face twisted. Her eyes filled with venom as she dropped the act, seeing no one else around. Sophia! You and your dear bestie really are the same, stupid to the core. You can't even keep your men. Victor and Romeo would do anything for me. If that's not love, what is? Sophia trembled, pointing at her. Roxana, don't you have any shame? Do you really need both of them? Roxana shrugged smugly. They love me. What can I do? If 2 men are willing to spend money on me, why would I say no? Oh, by the way, Sophia, how was that saffron chicken soup? Tasty? Her smile turned malicious. Sophia pretended to be enraged and shouted. Roxana, you knew I was pregnant, didn't you? You pushed me into the river, drugged my soup, you just didn't want me to have that baby. Roxana, seeing the pained expression on Sophia's face, grinned triumphantly. That's right, it was all me. Go ahead, tell Victor if you dare. Let's see if he believes you or me. Sophia stared at her with hatred, clutching her chest and gasping. Roxana sneered and swept out of the room. But once Roxana had left, the sorrow on Sophia's face vanished. She calmly walked to the recorder and pressed the stop button. Sophia didn't care about Victor anymore. Why should she care about a mistress's petty provocations? She stared at the cassette tape and gave a cold laugh. Roxana, I hope you enjoy this welcome gift. That night, Lara accompanied Sophia to the broadcasting station, where they quietly swapped out the tape scheduled to play the next morning. With everything done, they both slept soundly through the night. The next morning, the chatter and noise outside woke them up. When they opened the door, they were greeted by the sight of Victor and Romeo showering Roxana with praise. Roxana was dressed in the latest style, a bright red wool coat and dainty black leather shoes. As soon as she saw Sophia and Lara, she bounced over cheerfully. Sister-in-law, you're finally up. Do you like my outfit? Victor and Romeo insisted on buying it for me when they heard I was starting work at the broadcasting station. I just couldn't say no. Her words sounded modest, but her face was glowing with smug satisfaction. Sophia and Lara exchanged a look, then smiled and said together, It looks great. Roxana froze. Clearly, this wasn't the reaction she had expected. She had been prepared to see them argue so she could swoop in with her gentle and understanding act. Now that things had gone so smoothly, it felt like she'd punched cotton. There was nowhere for her anger to land. Romeo, too, was a bit surprised by Lara's calm demeanor. He gave her a curious once-over and suddenly noticed that she was still wearing her patched-up old winter coat. Romeo paused awkwardly and said, I'll buy you a new one next time. Lara merely smiled without saying a word. What she really wanted to say was, there won't be a next time. Roxana stomped her foot playfully. Victor, Romeo, I'm a little nervous about my first day. Can you both walk me there? I'll feel safer with you too. Linking arms with both brothers, she made to leave. Victor had just taken a few steps when he suddenly stopped and turned back. His gaze fell on Sophia, who stood quietly with her head bowed, wrapped in a faint melancholy. Roxana tugged at his sleeve with a frown. What is it, Victor? Victor didn't know himself. That strange feeling was back again. He pressed his lips together and explained to Sophia, Today's Roxana's first day. I'm going to walk her to work. That's how it should be, Sophia said lightly. Her gracious response stunned Victor. She didn't seem to mind. He should be happy about that. But instead, A strange unease gnawed at him, like something important was quietly slipping away without his noticing. "Come on, Victor," Roxana urged. Victor pushed aside the feeling and turned to leave, but oddly, both he and Romeo seemed a little distracted that day. Roxana seemed to notice. She blinked innocently and smiled sweetly. "Victor, Romeo, I'm really troubling you too. You should hurry back and comfort your wives before they start causing a fuss again." Her considerate tone warmed Victor's heart. "It's fine, let them fuss if they want. Sending you off is more important." But somehow, Sophia's tear-streaked face appeared in his mind. He thought back, had she ever really caused a scene? She had cried, that much was true, but had she ever actually made a fuss? Victor realized that she had never really argued or thrown a tantrum. She had just cried. At first, when she cried, he would try to comfort her, but when it happened too often, he started to feel annoyed. He was a man. After all, was he supposed to keep begging and coaxing a woman all the time? Lately, he had indeed been neglecting her too much. Oh right, she was on her period. He'd bring back a pound of brown sugar tonight. Victor's lips curved up slightly at the memory of her face flushing red the last time he apologized. She hadn't even let him finish before blushing like a schoolgirl. He said offhandedly, "Roxana, don't worry about your sister-in-law. She's just hot-tempered but really easy to appease. Focus on your new job. We'll come pick you up after your shift." Roxana beamed with delight and nodded. Meanwhile, Sophia and Lara turned away and quietly returned to their rooms. Sophia laid the signed divorce papers on the table, along with a medical report confirming her miscarriage. Elsewhere, Lara also placed her own divorce application on Romeo's desk, making sure it would be the first thing he saw when he got home. Then, the two women each picked up their luggage and left without a single glance back. As Sophia and Lara boarded the train to S-City, the loudspeakers of Y-City's broadcast station began playing a familiar voice. Victor and Romeo had just escorted Roxana to the station entrance. Just then, the morning broadcast began blaring. "Good morning, dear listeners. A new day has begun." Crowds were already gathering at the station entrance, eager to hear the day's early news. Romeo smiled. "Roxana, soon everyone will get to hear your voice every morning. You've got such a lovely tone, it's like you were born to be on radio." Victor nodded in agreement. Though, inexplicably, Sophia's clear and cool voice echoed in his mind. That female comrade is a radio announcer? So pretty. And with such a good job, no wonder so many young men are chasing after her. And so stylish too. That wool coat she's wearing, I saw it at the department store. Costs 150 yuan. Wow, incredible. I'm so envious. Hearing the flurry of compliments around her, Roxana felt giddy with pride, chin lifted high. She was just about to stride in, when suddenly the loudspeaker crackled with static. Then came the unmistakable sound of a recording. "You and your dear bestie are equally stupid. If two men are willing to spend money on me, how could I say no?" Sophia, how did that saffron chicken soup taste? The moment she recognized the words, Roxana's face turned ghostly pale. Panic set in. She bolted toward the broadcast room, desperate to shut off the speaker, but was stopped at the door. Roxana struggled wildly, too terrified to even glance back at Victor and Romeo. She screamed, trying to break free. "Why won't you let me in? I'm the new announcer." A stern voice responded. "Our broadcast station isn't someplace any stray cat or dog can wander into. People like you, with no moral integrity, are not welcome here." Enraged and humiliated, Roxana shouted, "Who are you? What right do you have to say that? I have an official job offer." She furiously pulled the paper out of her bag, waving it in front of the crowd. Someone sneered. "This is Director Han of the station. Think he has the right or not?" Roxana froze as Director Han snatched the paper from her hand and tore it cleanly in half. "Effective immediately. You're terminated. Please leave." "On what grounds? Even if you're the director, you can't do this. I'll report you." "Security, remove this woman who's disrupting our work." As she was dragged out of the station, Roxana caught sight of the very same people who'd praised her moments ago, now staring at her with utter contempt. "I thought she was some respectable lady from a good family, turns out she's just a shameless hussy." "Yeah, look at her face, you can tell she's a temptress. Absolutely disgraceful. Has she no shame?" Stealing Sophia's job wasn't enough, she wanted her husband too? She ought to be locked up. TCH. Shameless. More and more people gathered, their angry curses crashing down on Roxana like waves. She was overwhelmed, both furious and humiliated, but powerless to fight back. Roxana collapsed to the ground, her red wool coat now covered in mud, her delicate leather shoes trampled beyond recognition. Tears streamed down her face as she frantically looked around. Victor. Romeo, where are you? Come save me. When the recording had started to play, both Victor and Romeo had frozen in place. It took them a while to even register what they were hearing, that the cruel, venomous voice on the tape was Roxana's. The longer they listened, the darker their expressions became. They could hardly believe the gentle, obedient Roxana they knew could be so malicious behind their backs. By the end of the tape, a deep unease crept into both of them. Without speaking, the brothers broke into a run and headed home. Loudspeakers were installed all over Y City. By now, the whole scandal had spread through most of the city. As they ran, people recognized them and pointed fingers openly. That's them! One's a doctor, the other a teacher, and they're sleeping around with that Roxana. How shameless. They look like decent men, but it's all just a front. Their wives are truly unlucky. If it were me, I'd divorce them on the spot. Victor's heart clenched painfully at that last comment. He wasn't watching his step and tripped over a rock. His palm scraped against the ground, fresh blood oozing from the wound, the sting sharp and real. Suddenly, he remembered the blood on Sophia's pants from that day. So, she hadn't been faking it. Victor scrambled to his feet, not even bothering to brush off the dirt. He only wanted to get home and see Sophia. He needed to tell her he had been wrong. Compared to Victor's panic, Romeo appeared much calmer. In fact, he was secretly relieved he hadn't done anything truly unforgivable. Had he? Surely, if he just coaxed Lara a bit, she would forgive him. Oh right, Lara had always wanted a Dacron shirt. He'd buy her one. So instead of heading straight home, Romeo turned and walked to the supply store. But when the sales clerk asked what color and size he wanted, Romeo froze. He realized he had no idea what color Lara liked, or what size she wore. Comrade, you don't even know what color your wife likes? The sales clerk asked with thinly veiled contempt. Giving him a scornful glance, Romeo forced a stiff smile, then blindly pointed at a bright red shirt. Clutching the shirt, he hurried home, already imagining how touched Lara would be when she received it. Victor arrived first. As soon as he stepped into the yard, he was struck by the eerie silence. His heart sank. He pushed open the door. Sophia, the name stuck in his throat. The room was empty. He looked around wildly, until his gaze landed on the stack of papers on the table. On top was a miscarriage report, dated 3 days ago. Victor's hands trembled as he picked it up. The thin sheet felt as heavy as a mountain. For a long time, he just stood there, the truth hitting him like a tidal wave. Sophia and his child were gone. He slumped against the wall, sliding down slowly until he crouched on the floor in a daze. Sophia's pale face appeared in his mind, and those eyes, filled with despair. Suddenly, as if jolted awake, he crawled toward the table and flipped through the rest of the papers. When his eyes landed on the words divorce agreement, Victor's mind went blank. He forgot how to breathe. Divorce. Sophia actually wanted to divorce him. In a frenzy, Victor tore through the house searching, only then realizing all of Sophia's things were gone. All that remained was the box of snow cream Victor had once given Sophia, a gift she had never even opened. Suddenly, Victor realized, with a jolt, that aside from that box, he had never given Sophia anything. A flicker of guilt stirred in his chest, only to be swiftly replaced by rage. Victor clenched the divorce papers in his fist, the thin sheets crumpling instantly into a tight, wrinkled ball. Yes, he had made mistakes, but Sophia running away from home like this? That was going too far. Wait! She and Lara were as close as sisters. Lara would definitely know where Sophia had gone. Victor barged into Romeo's room, only to find his brother standing still, staring at a piece of paper with a dark and stormy expression. A sudden, terrible premonition swept over him. Victor grabbed Romeo by the collar, his voice sharp with urgency. Where's Lara? Brother. Lara wants to divorce me. Romeo's voice trembled, tinged with disbelief. His head was still spinning when he'd opened the door and seen the divorce papers. An unexplainable fury had surged inside him. Lara throwing the occasional tantrum, he could tolerate that. But divorce? That was going too far. Victor frowned deeply. They don't have any family or friends here in Y City. Where could they have gone? Romeo was silent, lost in thought. Then his eyes landed on the wedding photo hanging on the wall, and he froze. He strode over and took the photo down. Half of it was missing. In the picture, Romeo's expression was stiff and impatient. He remembered how unwilling he'd been when the photo was taken, while Lara had been overjoyed. That photo had always been her treasure. Now, she had torn it in half. She must have truly reached her breaking point. "I'm going to the textile factory to look," he muttered, rushing out in a panic like never before. Victor, a terrible suspicion rising in his chest, quickly followed, his frustration and regret boiling over. He stormed into the hospital's OBGYN department and barked, "My wife had a miscarriage. Why didn't anyone notify me? Doesn't a dilation and curettage surgery require a family member's signature?" The department head's face darkened instantly upon seeing him. "Dr. Kim, we followed all proper procedures. You're the one who neglected your wife. And now you're blaming us?" The nurse who had accompanied them that day no longer showed any respect either. She said with open dissatisfaction, "Dr. Kim, I told you that day, your wife looked like she was in serious condition. Did you forget what you said?" Victor froze. The memory came flooding back. He had said Sophia was faking it and told them not to waste medical resources. If he had just believed her then, if he had brought her to the hospital right away, would their child have survived? A wave of crushing remorse engulfed him. The nurse continued. When she was later rushed in, it was already critical. "I went to find you for the consent form, but you were too busy applying medicine to Roxana." Victor felt like someone had stabbed him through the chest. He remembered. He vaguely recalled the nurse mentioning Sophia's name. But Roxana had cried out in pain at that exact moment. His attention had been entirely on her. And he hadn't really heard the nurse's words. He had casually signed the form. He hadn't realized it was Sophia's surgery authorization. If only he had read it carefully, just one glance. Would Sophia still have left? When Victor returned home, he saw Romeo slumped in a chair, head down, and their mother pacing angrily with fire in her eyes. The moment Kim's mother saw her elder son, she snapped. "You didn't even know your wife was pregnant? And you call yourself a doctor? We've lost the Kim family's first grandson, just like that. And that wife of yours, making a family matter public like that. Now look, I can't even step outside without people whispering behind my back." She turned sharply toward Romeo, face full of contempt. "And you, that wife of yours, Lara must have instigated this. Sophia doesn't have the guts to pull something like this on her own." Romeo slowly lifted his head, but his face was unreadable. He had just gone to the textile mill to ask around, only to be told by the supervisor that Lara had resigned 3 days ago. For the first time, Romeo felt completely lost. Neither he nor Victor could understand it. Could those two women really bear to leave them? Divorce them? Just like that? The room was silent, heavy. Suddenly, a woman's voice called from the doorway. Everyone turned their heads. "Victor! Romeo!" Roxana. Her voice trembled with sobs, her expression pitiful as she looked at the two brothers. Victor's face froze in a stiff smile. For a brief moment, he had hoped that the voice belonged to Sophia. But it wasn't. It was Roxana. Romeo, too, showed a flash of disappointment in his eyes. Seeing their reactions, Roxana's eyes reddened instantly, tears rolling down her cheeks in frustration. She had finally escaped the broadcasting station, twisted her ankle, torn her clothes. She looked a complete mess. And yet, they didn't even seem to notice. Kim's mother's anger surged at the sight of Roxana, her face twisted with fury as she spat through gritted teeth. "Roxana, you heartless girl, our Kim family has treated you well. How dare you harm my daughter-in-law and make her lose her baby? That was the grandson I longed for." Roxana instinctively tried to hide behind Victor and Romeo, like she always did when scolded, but this time, neither man moved. A flicker of hatred flashed in Roxana's eyes, and her expression twisted. They had adored her once, doted on her. This was all Sophia's fault. Roxana shrieked, her voice sharp. "Victor, it was that cheating Sophia who set me up. I didn't know she was recording." Victor's eyes glinted coldly, his voice grim and low. She's my wife, not a cheat. Roxana was visibly startled by the chilling tone. Victor suddenly felt like a stranger, as if he had changed. And now, he was actually defending that woman? Flustered, Roxana quickly put on her usual fragile act, tugging at Victor's sleeve and whispering pitifully, "Victor, please believe me, I was framed." Victor's tone turned colder than ever. "You mean the voice in the recording isn't yours? Or you didn't cause Sophia's miscarriage? The evidence is all right there, and you're still trying to lie your way out of it? Roxana, I'm deeply disappointed in you." Roxana stood frozen, tears welling again in her eyes. "Victor. Romeo. I know I was wrong. In the past." Seeing her cry like that would have melted Victor in an instant. He would have hurried to comfort her. But now, a strange irritation welled up inside him. All he could picture was Sophia silently crying, tears slipping down her pale cheeks. Romeo didn't move either. He barely looked at Roxana before lowering his eyes, his mind elsewhere, ashamed and furious. Roxana stomped her foot and ran off, covering her face as she fled. That evening, no one spoke during dinner. Victor stared at his bowl of rice and suddenly remembered something. Every time they had a fight, no matter how upset she was, Sophia would still leave him a meal. She was always soft-hearted like that. He couldn't help but smile faintly at the memory. She's just throwing a tantrum, he told himself confidently. She'd been wrong this time. He admitted that. But once she cooled down, he'd let it go. He wouldn't hold it against her for running away. He was ready to live well with her, seriously. This time, Romeo, on the other hand, recalled how Lara used to bring him meals all the way from home, still warm despite the freezing winter and the 6 miles of distance. He had no idea how she managed it. He also remembered how Lara used to trail behind him, always with a shy smile. The thought settled his nerves a bit. She loves me that much, there's no way she'd actually divorce me. Lara had always liked kids. She used to pester him about wanting a baby. Well then, he'd give her one. Romeo made up his mind. When Lara came back, he'd give her a child. She'd be overjoyed, absolutely thrilled. Romeo, deep in thought, became more and more convinced that Lara's departure was just a ploy to get his attention, to manage him in a new way. Unbeknownst to each other, the two brothers had reached the same conclusion. With that certainty, both men let out a subtle breath of relief. Victor stared into his bowl of rice and suddenly recalled something. Back when they'd fought, no matter how angry Sophia was, she would always leave food for him. She was the soft-hearted type. At that memory, Victor's lips curled up slightly. He was now convinced that Sophia was only throwing a tantrum. Yes, she'd been wrong this time, he admitted. So, when she came back, he would let it go. He'd no longer hold her running away against her. They could just live a good life together. Romeo, meanwhile, thought of how Lara always delivered meals to him warm even in the dead of winter. 6 li away. He never knew how she did it. He pictured her always running after him. So eager, so full of love. That memory comforted him. She loved him that much. How could she really want a divorce? Lara had always loved children. She used to pester him about having one. Fine. He'd give her a child. Romeo believed, knew that she'd be overjoyed. Yes, Lara was just trying to gain the upper hand in a different way. And so, the brothers settled into their shared illusion, and both, content with their own conclusions, finally relaxed a little. Meanwhile, with the rhythmic clack-clack of the train beneath them, Sophia and Lara felt a deep sense of peace. After 2 days and 1 night, the train finally arrived at their destination, S-City. Lara's cousin Hudson picked them up and arranged a place for them to stay. Full of hope, the sisters slept soundly through the night. Compared to Y-City, S-City's climate was noticeably warmer. With the tonic supplements Hudson had brought and the meticulous care from Lara these past few days, Sophia was feeling nearly recovered. Her cheeks finally regained some color. She was still thin, but the vitality in her eyes made her look like a different person entirely. Hudson gave them a tour of S-City, and the lively, flourishing cityscape left both women stunned. Then, he brought them to his clothing factory. Sophia and Lara were dazzled by the neatly arranged machines, the bustling workers, the shelves of colorful fabrics and finished garments. Everything felt new and full of possibility. Hudson explained that the factory mainly produced ready-to-wear women's fashion, which was distributed wholesale to markets all over the country. Lara's mind sparked with an idea. She quickly asked, "Hudson, can we get stock from you and sell it ourselves at a market stall?" Hudson responded without hesitation, "Of course. Take whatever you need. You can settle the payment after you sell." The two women selected 10 dresses, which came to exactly 500 yuan, but Sophia insisted on paying up front. Hudson couldn't talk her out of it, and eventually accepted the money. He also gave them some hangers to help display the dresses nicely, and then he handed over a bundle of sewing thread, fabric scraps, and buttons, all for free. Back at their place, the sisters quickly got to work. Lara had grown up in a family of tailors and had a keen eye for fabric and design. Her embroidery skills were especially exquisite. Sophia wasn't as skilled, but she could still help with support work. After their careful modifications, the 10 dresses looked completely refreshed. They each picked a dress to wear and brought the remaining 8 to a busy commercial street. Sophia and Lara were their own best advertisements, one graceful and elegant, the other radiant and bold, each wearing a distinct look, but both stunning. Before long, a crowd began gathering around their stall. "Miss, how much for these dresses?" asked a woman in her 40s. "Sis, 150 yuan each," Lara replied with a smile. "That's way too expensive." The older woman frowned. Sophia explained patiently, "Ma'am, our skirts use high-quality fabric, and all the embroidery is hand-stitched. Look, each one is unique." The woman glanced down. It was true, though the 8 skirts had the same overall cut. The embroidered patterns were all different. One had peonies, another butterflies, another clouds of good fortune. A fashionably dressed young woman caught sight of them and lit up. "This is perfect. I hate wearing the same thing as everyone else. I'll take the one with the butterfly." A few more customers crowded around the stall, picking out skirts excitedly. Seeing another skirt sell, the older woman suddenly feared someone else would snatch the peony design she liked, and quickly paid. In no time, all 8 skirts were sold out. Sophia and Lara exchanged a glance. They realized this was a real opportunity. They repeated the process, sourced new stock, redesigned the pieces, and sold them again, every day. The 2 slender women lugged huge bundles of clothes, wandering the streets. Sometimes, if they arrived late, someone had already taken their spot, and they'd be forced to drag their heavy bags elsewhere. It was exhausting, but as their wallets grew fatter, so did their motivation. Their unique designs and fresh styles earned them a reputation in the area. When they set up shop now, a crowd of girls would already be waiting. Again, their goods sold out in minutes. Holding 2,000 yuan in hand, Sophia and Lara were giddy with joy. Counting everything they'd earned so far, they had made 50,000 yuan. They began planning to rent a unit in a mall. That way, they wouldn't have to roam the streets in all kinds of weather. And with a fixed location, return customers would be easier to manage. They also wanted to try wholesale. It was much more profitable than retail. But mall shopfronts were highly coveted and awarded by public bidding. Just as they were confidently preparing for the bidding event, an unexpected face appeared. "Roxana? What's she doing here?" Lara gasped, eyes wide. Sophia's brows furrowed. Something about Roxana's presence felt wrong. Roxana was draped over bossly, her chest pressed tightly against the older man's arm as she cooed with a syrupy voice. "Godfather, I really want that shop space." He chuckled lewdly, patting her chest with a groping hand. Of course, just a little shop front. As long as you keep me happy, you'll have whatever you want. Little vixen." "Aw, Godfather, you're so naughty," Roxana squealed in mock protest. Sophia and Lara exchanged shocked looks. Both could hardly believe what they were seeing. Roxana peeked out from Lee's embrace and threw them a smug, mocking glance. "The winning bid goes to Bosley." As the announcement came, the light in Sophia and Lara's eyes dimmed. They weren't surprised. Really, the moment they saw Roxana, they knew she'd pull something. As they turned to leave, Roxana strutted up onto the stage in high heels, chin proudly lifted. She raised one hand, and behind her, a curtain pulled back to reveal a stunning black velvet dress adorned with pearls. Dazzling under the spotlight, the entire room gasped. "Please, esteemed bosses, take a look." Roxana said with a charming smile. This is a haute couture piece from our new collaboration with the Shanghai Showcase. Designed by yours truly. I hope we can work together more in the future. She handed out business cards and flirted with the business crowd. People whispered with admiration. So beautiful. Who would have thought velvet and pearls could go together so well? Miss Bai is incredible. She's working with the Shanghai Showcase. I've never seen such a stunning dress. And she designed it herself. Boss Lee is really lucky to have her. Roxana basked in the praise, her eyes glittering with self-satisfaction. This is the life I deserve, she thought. If not for those two women forcing her out of Y City, she'd never have ended up here in S City. She still remembered her rage and jealousy when she first saw Sophia and Lara's elegant outfits. Why should they live better than her? She was prettier, had a better figure, everything should belong to her. Those two fools thought they could compete with Boss Lee? Ridiculous! Men were the real ticket to power. Roxana's lips curled in scorn as she looked down at them, but when the curtain revealed the dress, Sophia and Lara stood frozen. That was their dress, their design. How had Roxana gotten her hands on it? The two of them rushed to the stage, furious. This was our design. When did it become yours? Roxana, do you have no shame? Roxana sneered and looked down her nose at them. Country bumpkins. You designed something like this? Please, I bet you've never even seen a dress like this before. Livid. The sisters tried to explain to the crowd. We really made this. Every single pearl was sewn on by hand. Don't let her fool you. The surrounding crowd began to murmur with doubt. Lara's eyes lit up with an idea and she asked sharply, Roxana, if you really designed this dress, then what's your design concept? Explain it. A flicker of panic passed across Roxana's face, a shadow of irritation, but then she quickly composed herself, smiling sweetly again. All this talk of design concept, why should I tell you anything? Lee Boss's voice rose sharply with contempt. Someone come quick. Get these two crazy troublemakers out of here. At his command, several workers sprang into action. In an instant, Sophia and Lara were seized and held tightly, unable to move. The two women struggled desperately, but the difference in strength was overwhelming. They couldn't break free. Just as despair began to take hold, a sharp, familiar voice rang out. Let them go! Sophia and Lara's head snapped up. To their astonishment, it was Victor and Romeo. For a second, they thought they were seeing things. When did they get to S City? Seeing their stunned expressions, the two brothers smirked with smug satisfaction. Victor stepped forward first and said with fake sincerity, Sorry, everyone, these are our wives. They ran off after a little disagreement with us. We truly apologize for the trouble. Romeo chimed in immediately. That's right, they're both a bit vain and impulsive, always competing with others. This was just a moment of foolishness. Miss Bai, please forgive them. As their husbands, it's our duty to apologize on their behalf. After apologizing to Roxana, they bowed repeatedly to the surrounding crowd, looking for all the world like devoted and responsible husbands. Victor! Romeo! What nonsense are you spouting? Sophia and Lara lifted their heads in unison, eyes wide with disbelief. They had thought the brothers had come to bring them home, but this? Their faces flushed with fury as they tried to explain, but no one listened. Enough. Sophia, stop throwing a tantrum. Come home with me. Victor's tone softened slightly, but his grip on Lara's arm tightened, trying to drag her off the platform. Romeo, let go of me. We're already divorced. Sophia's eyes burned with tears as she struggled, but Victor's strength made it impossible to break free. Sophia, couples shouldn't hold grudges overnight. Let's go home. Victor tried to pull her into his arms, but she resisted fiercely and fell, scraping her knee hard against the ground. Blood oozed from the wound, and her face went pale from the pain. Victor frowned and reached out, but Sophia shouted, Don't touch me. We're already divorced. Why won't you let me go? Victor froze, then quickly composed himself. Turning to the crowd, he forced a bitter smile. Sorry to make a scene, everyone. It's just a small quarrel, not worth a divorce. Really? Romeo played his part, feigning heartbreak. Lara, be good. Don't be willful. When I praised your little sewing skills at home, it was just to keep you happy. Don't let a moment of vanity ruin everything. That design belongs to Miss Bai. Come on now. Don't embarrass yourself in public. Let's go home, all right? The onlookers began murmuring, their gazes at Sophia and Lara now full of disdain. Look at those husbands, so understanding. How did they end up with such unruly women? Always causing scenes. Listen, young man, you can't spoil women too much. Divorced? For what? And trying to fight lead boss for his store and designs? Absolutely shameless. I tell you, these two men are good. Their wives, though, embarrassing, fighting in public like thieves. Exactly. Every woman thinks she can run a business nowadays. Those two? No match for lead boss's woman. A man even bent down obsequiously and flashed a fawning smile at lead boss. Sophia and Lara trembled with rage as the judgment of the crowd rained down. Roxana stepped forward with a smug smile, covering her mouth in mock modesty. Sophia, Lara, I was actually going to report you to the police for attempted theft. But since your husbands have apologized so sincerely, I'll let it go. I forgive you. Take your wives home. At the sight of her gleeful expression, Sophia's eyes turned red with fury. Then go ahead and call the police. We didn't steal or take anything. Let the law decide who's right. Victor's voice turned cold. Sophia, lead boss is not someone you can afford to mess with. Just come home. He leaned in close to Lara's ear, his voice low and threatening. You really think the police would believe you? Once they're involved, it'll be worse. We won't be able to help you anymore. The only way out of this is to come with us. Otherwise, you'll go to prison, and trust me, lead boss can make sure you never get out. At that moment, Sophia and Lara understood this was all a setup. Victor, Romeo, and Roxana had worked together to trap them. This entire ploy, just to force them to go back. But what puzzled Sophia and Lara was, why would Roxana help set this up? Hadn't she always wanted them divorced? They didn't have time to think. Victor and Romeo had already grabbed their arms and were dragging them away. Struggling against the pull, they suddenly heard a cold, commanding voice from the door. Stop! Let them go! Hudson stormed in, face dark as thunder. He shoved Victor and Romeo aside and shielded the two women behind him. Sophia, Lara, are you all right? When his gaze landed on the wound on Sophia's leg, his eyes darkened further, and the air around him turned frigid. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to Lara, who immediately took it and began treating Sophia's wound. Hudson's expression was grim as he scanned the room. I have proof they were falsely accused, he said coldly. The commanding force in his voice silenced the entire room. Victor squinted at him. Uncomfortable under Hudson's pressure, it made him feel inferior. And who the hell are you? This is my wife we're talking about. What business is it of yours? Victor's fists clenched tight, veins bulging. Romeo joined in, full of anger. Exactly. This is our family's matter. Who are you? Their secret lover or something? His eyes darted between Hudson and Lara. Then he growled at her. Lara, is this pretty boy the reason you won't come back with me? Lara snapped. Romeo, shut your mouth. He's my cousin. Hudson remained calm and unshaken, his tall frame standing protectively between the two women and their aggressors. Ignoring the brothers, he gestured to his assistant. A projector screen lit up with a video. The footage showed a sneaky figure creeping around a storeroom, glancing about suspiciously. Then she spotted something and rushed toward the back. The camera zoomed in as she lifted a white cover from a garment rack, revealing the exact black velvet dress that had been on stage. She quickly took it down, looked around, stuffed it into a bag, and turned to leave. Her face was caught clearly on camera. It was Roxana. Her entire theft had been captured, clear and damning. The crowd burst into murmurs. Can you believe it? It really was her. She was accusing those two girls just now so confidently. Talk about a slap in the face. Roxana stumbled back, shrieking. What is this? That's not real. Hudson scoffed. By miss. Seems you don't get out much. My warehouse is fully monitored. Everything you did is on tape. What do you have to say now? Still shouting, Roxana cried. No, it wasn't me. It's fake. You're framing me. But Hudson had already called the police earlier. With the evidence clear, they burst in and immediately restrained Roxana. Panic seized her. How had it come to this? Why were the police here? No, She couldn't go to jail. If she went to jail, her life was over. 2 officers handcuffed her as she screamed, "You can't arrest me. I'm 3 months pregnant. Pregnant women can't be jailed." She suddenly felt empowered by her own lie and shouted louder, "Let go of me. Just because you're the police doesn't mean you can touch a pregnant woman." The officers, stunned, hesitated. They didn't want to harm an unborn child. But her words hit like a bomb. Lee Boss, who had just been about to step forward to plead for her, froze mid-step. Pregnant for 3 months? He had only slept with her a month ago. This woman dared to cheat him? He felt like a lush canopy of green had sprouted above his head. Disgusted, he turned to leave. "Godfather, save me! Don't leave me like this!" Roxana screamed, crawling toward him. She wrapped her arms around his leg, tears streaming. "I'll serve you well. I know so many tricks. Please, don't throw me away." Lee Boss kicked her off hard, spitting viciously. "TCH, disgusting woman. Stay away from me. I feel filthy just looking at you." Roxana curled on the floor, clutching her stomach and sobbing uncontrollably. But he didn't even look back. He hadn't gone far. However, when the police stopped him too, "Nestor Lee, you're under investigation for illegally manipulating bids. Come with us." As Lee Boss was escorted away, Roxana panicked and changed her target. She scrambled toward Victor and Romeo, gripping their sleeves tightly. "Victor! Romeo! Say something! I did this to help you two get your wives back. I wouldn't have taken the risk otherwise. Are you just going to abandon me now?" But both men were fuming. It had been Roxana who called them, claiming she knew how to bring Sophia and Lara back. They had only agreed to cooperate because she made it sound so convincing. They never expected her to exploit them or to involve the police. And now, here in S City, far from home, they didn't even have the time or influence to deal with this mess. They each only had a week off. If they got dragged into a police investigation, it would cause real trouble. So they shook her off and stepped away. "Don't drag us down with you," Romeo muttered coldly. Roxana collapsed, sobbing so hard her voice turned hoarse. Why is everyone abandoning me?" But the truth was out. Sophia and Lara had no interest in watching her performance. They stepped forward, gently reclaimed the stolen dress, and explained everything to the police before preparing to leave. Seeing them turn to go, Victor and Romeo rushed after them, only to be stopped by Hudson's outstretched arm. "Already divorced, so I'll say this once, stay away from my 2 sisters. Or don't blame me for being rude." Victor and Romeo turned red with fury, but couldn't do a thing. They had witnessed Hudson's influence firsthand and knew how powerful he was in S City. Neither of them dared to act rashly. Seeing them so cold and unyielding, Roxana's eyes welled with tears. She gently caressed her slightly swollen belly and sobbed pitifully. "Victor, even the child, you won't acknowledge it?" Victor's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. He instinctively glanced at Sophia, terrified she might misunderstand. "Roxana, what nonsense are you talking about? That child's not mine. Don't you dare smear me with your filth." The brothers didn't even spare her a second glance, letting her cry uncontrollably as they turned to chase after Sophia and Lara. But the 2 women were already gone, riding off in Hudson's car, leaving behind nothing but a puff of exhaust smoke. The men searched for days, but to no avail. Helpless, they called their workplaces to request extended leave. But the moment their calls connected, their faces changed dramatically. "Victor, you'd better come back immediately. Sophia's lawyer has sent a formal notice to the hospital." Romeo's school was no different. The principal's voice was stern with barely concealed anger. "Romeo, get back here and sort out your personal mess. The lawsuit's already reached the school." Both men rushed to the train station and bought return tickets in a panic. Sitting on the train back to Y City, they were exhausted and broken, nothing like the confident men who had traveled to S City days earlier. Victor was noticeably darker and thinner from the stress. Romeo, usually so mindful of his image, hadn't even shaved. His face was gray, his hair disheveled. As soon as they arrived in Y City, they didn't even go home, heading straight for their respective workplaces. "Do you even understand what a legal notice means?" the hospital director thundered. "Victor, you actually ran to S City and falsified evidence? The lawsuit's filed. Unless you sign the divorce agreement, The hospital could be dragged into this. Either you sign, or hand in your resignation. Though the director valued Victor's skills, he wouldn't let the hospital's reputation be tainted. Victor stood there, stunned. He had never imagined Sophia would go this far, actually sue him. Romeo got the same treatment. The principal pointed a shaking finger at him. For a teacher, you've sure made a mess. The lawsuit's already on record. If you don't settle this soon, even the school won't be able to protect you. Think carefully. The two left with their heads down, carrying divorce agreements and legal documents back home. Seeing her son so defeated, Kim's mother flew into a rage, slamming the table hard. You went all the way to get them back, and they still had the nerve to act like that? To even sue you? Bah! Just divorce them. What good are they anyway? Can't even lay an egg. What use are wives like that? If you lose those iron rice bowl jobs as a doctor and teacher, then I swear I'll die right in front of you. Let your dead father see how useless his sons turned out to be. She meant to make a dramatic show, but misjudged her balance and actually fell, unable to move. Victor and Romeo rushed her to the hospital, faced with expensive surgery costs and pressure from work. They had no choice but to sign the divorce agreements. Sophia and Lara received the signed papers from their lawyer and officially registered the divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau. It was over, truly over. Meanwhile, Lee Boss had been detained for bribing officials at the Business Bureau and rigging the bidding process. To compensate Sophia and Lara, the mall awarded them the store's lease rights directly, no bidding required, and even waived the first 3 months' rent. The sisters were ecstatic. The store had a prime location, the rent was fair, and now they had room to spread their wings. They arranged for renovations and ordered shelves, then took their dresses and headed to Shanghai for a fashion show. On the runway, a poised model strutted confidently in a dress designed by Sophia and Lara, immediately winning applause from the entire audience. Business owners in the crowd eagerly extended offers to collaborate. Sophia and Lara, overwhelmed yet thrilled, exchanged business cards with several of them. Everyone praised their designs as bold yet elegant, fashionable yet refined. With intricate craftsmanship, they returned to S-City full of joy. Just as their store renovation was completed, they restocked inventory. And finally, Sisters Fashion Boutique officially opened its doors. Wearing outfits from their own store, the two women became their best advertisements. Business boomed from day one. In less than 2 weeks, they'd earned over 60,000 yuan, becoming a known name in the mall. Their clothes were one of a kind, each piece unique. Some customers even asked if they could buy wholesale to resell. Realizing the potential, Sophia and Lara saw an opportunity. Wholesale brought more profit than retail. After careful discussion, they formed a partnership with Hudson. Hudson's factory specialized in basic garments with simple cuts. Lara and Sophia added value through secondary processing, beading, embroidery, sequins, and decorative buttons, making every piece stand out. But scaling up production meant they needed help. The two couldn't do it alone. They rented a small workshop, hired over a dozen women workers, and brought in 2 skilled Suzhou embroidery masters. With workstations set up, a production line began to take shape. News of their factory spread, and the business contacts they had met at the fashion show started placing large orders. Lara designed fresh patterns based on the latest trends. Her bold color combinations and unique motifs drew attention instantly. Lara, I didn't know you had such talent, Hudson said admiringly as he delivered more equipment. Sophia, too, was genuinely happy for her best friend, her sister, her partner, in her past life. Sophia had watched with her own eyes as Lara, once so vibrant and full of life, wilted in the shackles of marriage. But now, Lara's confidence was radiant. She was glowing. After thorough preparation, their clothing factory officially launched. They hired 2 staff to manage the storefront while Sophia and Lara shuttled back and forth between the shop and the factory. It was tiring, but fulfilling. One day, when Sophia was at the shop, a group of foreigners walked in. They pointed at the clothes, chattering with admiration. Sophia could tell they liked what they saw, but she couldn't understand their words. Neither could the store assistants. In the end, the foreigners left, disappointed. Sophia began to notice that more and more foreigners were coming to S-City. She realized this was a golden opportunity. Why shouldn't their beautiful clothes be sold abroad? A bold idea formed: do business with foreigners. In the early 1980s, English speakers were extremely rare, but Sophia, having lived through the new era in her previous life, understood the importance of English. She enrolled in night school. During the day, she worked at the store. At night, she studied English diligently. Clever and hardworking, Sophia quickly impressed even her teachers. Her pronunciation was excellent, her voice smooth and pleasant from years as a broadcaster. Initially, she was shy about speaking, but her teacher told her, only by opening your mouth can you truly learn. So she practiced every chance she got. In just 2 months, she could hold daily conversations fluently. When foreigners visited again, Sophia could chat with them easily. Other merchants started turning to her for help when foreign customers came in. Sophia always helped with translations, even helping close deals. Soon, she became known throughout the mall, admired for her skills and praised for her generosity. Sophia, you're amazing, Lara said one day, watching her best friend shine with pride. And it was then that Sophia truly realized life could be lived differently. She was happy, genuinely happy. Each day felt meaningful. In her past life, her world had revolved entirely around Victor. But in this one, she was living for herself. Meanwhile, back in Y City, Kim's mother's surgery had failed due to poor medical conditions. She was now paralyzed. The divorce and their mother's illness weighed heavily on Victor and Romeo. Victor, once stern, had grown even colder. He barely spoke, keeping everyone at arm's length. One afternoon, after finishing surgery, Victor passed through the hospital lobby and saw a young girl curled up, clutching her stomach. Something about the scene made his heart clench. It reminded him of Sophia. He approached her instinctively. What's wrong? The girl blushed. It's my period. The pain is really bad. And just like that, Victor was transported back in time to when Sophia, newly married, had come to the hospital for the same reason. She was in pain, hesitant to speak, and asked him softly if he could help her get an emergency appointment because the line was too long. Victor had refused. He scolded her, told her not to expect special treatment just because she was his wife. What would others think? That I'm abusing my position? He'd made her wait in the hallway, in pain, alone. The memory struck like a hammer. What had he done? He called over a nurse and told her to help the girl. The nurse gave him a strange look, but did as told. That night, Victor's longing for Sophia hit its peak when he heard that a new hospital in S City was recruiting temporary staff. He signed up immediately. Departure. 3 days later, Romeo, too, returned home and thought of Lara. The room was empty. Dirty clothes, a cold bed, no familiar chatter, no warm food waiting in the snow. The silence was unbearable. He looked down at his navy blue Zhongshan suit, handmade by Lara. She had worked overtime for 2 months to earn enough fabric coupons to get 5 feet of cloth from the supply store, sewing deep into the night to finish it. He had worn it proudly to school, basking in compliments, but instead of thanking her, he had belittled her for being just a textile worker. He remembered her excited face when she asked if he liked the suit, and his cold, awkward reply, "It's all right, I guess." He had watched her smile fall, her eyes dim with disappointment. Romeo now gently touched the fabric. His heart ached. When Victor told him about going to S City, Romeo jumped to his feet. He rushed to ask the school principal if there were any opportunities in S City. By sheer luck, there was an academic conference being held at Shenzhen University a week later. The spot had already been assigned to Professor Su, Romeo's mentor. Romeo pleaded with him, and when Su learned the trip was to win back a former wife, he gave up his spot. For the first time since the divorce, hope sparked in their hearts. But there was one problem: who would care for their mother? And sure enough, when Kim's mother heard of their plans, she exploded. All this for some woman? Do you two have no spine? No one's going to take care of me? Then let me die. Just as the brothers stood frozen in guilt and panic, a coy voice chimed in from the doorway. Victor, Romeo, don't worry, I'll stay and take care of Auntie. They turned and saw Roxana. The two brothers couldn't hide their shock. Victor's brows knitted together in irritation. Why are you back? Roxana bit her lip, pushing down the hatred in her eyes and quickly putting on a pitiful expression. Victor, I really know I was wrong. Just let me stay and take care of Auntie, please. Inside, Roxana was burning with rage, but on the surface, she still acted soft and weak. She had avoided prison only because she was pregnant, but S City was no longer a place she could stay. Her shame was known by all. She had nowhere to go. No money for an abortion. What else could she do? Even the train fare back to Y City had been begged from others. Now, she had no choice but to grovel in the Kim household, hoping to use the old gratitude they owed her as leverage. Kim mother wasn't aware of what Roxana had done in S City. After all, she had watched her grow up, and seeing her in such a sorry state, she couldn't bring herself to cast her out. She decided Roxana could stay. Seeing this, Victor and Romeo said nothing more, just told her to take good care of their mother. Fine, I can't stop you too. Just bring Sophia back soon. She's the only one who knows how to take care of me properly. Kim mother barked, her tone sharp. With her approval, Victor and Romeo left in high spirits. But just 2 days into caring for the old woman, Roxana couldn't take it anymore. The old hag knew she was paralyzed, yet still ate like a pig, which meant she also defecated like one. Cleaning her up, feeding her, waiting on her hand and foot, Roxana couldn't get a single moment's rest. And she was pregnant. She had had enough. From the bed, Kim mother's voice called out again, "Roxana, come clean me up." After several calls, Roxana finally dragged herself in. The stench inside nearly made her gag. Pinching her nose, face wrinkled with disgust, Roxana stepped closer. Kim mother frowned at the look on her face. Growing displeased, she thought back to when she had just undergone gynecological surgery. Sophia had cared for her without complaint, cleaning her up, wiping her, never showing a hint of disgust. That memory stung. Roxana, what kind of attitude is that? I'm telling you, if you want to marry into this family, you'd better take good care of me. Otherwise, don't even think about it. Already furious, Roxana snapped. She hurled the bedpan at the old woman and growled viciously. "You old hag! Who do you think you are? You think I'm like Sophia, easy to control? Die already! You stink like death, wetting the bed like a damn corpse." You, Kim mother sputtered, soaked in her own urine, stunned beyond belief. She never imagined Roxana would dare treat her this way. Roxana rummaged through the room until she found the metal box where Kim mother kept her money. She stuffed all the cash into her pockets and stormed out, ignoring the old woman's desperate cries. With money in hand, Roxana's first stop was the hospital. She had seduced a rich businessman back when she couldn't survive in Y City and gotten pregnant, hoping to climb the social ladder. But the bastard denied everything. His legal wife hounded her constantly. Roxana had fled to S City just to escape. This child had to go. Without it, she could still hook a wealthy man. With resentment gleaming in her eyes, she marched into the OBGYN department. Meanwhile, Sophia was busy setting up a foreign trade company, rushing between government offices, working non-stop. Back home, Lara handed her a small booklet. Sophia opened it and was stunned. Inside were detailed sketches and specifications for shirts, skirts, dresses, trousers, suits, vests, and mid-length coats. Each had clearly labeled sizes and styles for easy reference. "Lara, this is amazing!" Sophia threw her arms around Lara in excitement. This booklet would be perfect for presenting their products in negotiations with foreign clients. "You're amazing too, Sophia, the first female entrepreneur at the export fair. I'm so proud of you." Just then, Hudson entered with a large bag of groceries and overheard their exchange. He couldn't help but grin. All right. You're both incredible. Your factories are bigger than mine now. Please, let this poor man have a bite of food." Sophia giggled at his antics, took the groceries, and headed to the kitchen. "I'll help." Hudson followed her in. Lara stood back, arms folded, watching the two with thoughtful eyes before a knowing smile spread across her face. Victor had spent days searching and finally found Sophia in S City. She had put on a little weight, just enough. She had been far too thin before. The sky blue suit she wore fit her beautifully. Watching her converse fluently with foreigners, Victor was hit by a sudden, unfamiliar fear. When had Sophia learned a foreign language? And how could she speak it so well? The words flowed from her mouth like music. Victor, for the first time, felt like he didn't truly know her. He even felt inferior, like his feet were made of lead, unable to move. After securing a major deal, Sophia escorted the foreign client out with a bright smile, only to find Victor standing inside. Gone was the timid Sophia of the past. "What are you doing here?" Her tone was cool and distant. Victor faltered, words catching in his throat. "Sophia, I've been transferred to the new district hospital here in S City. If you ever get sick or something, you can come find me." Sophia stared at him, bewildered by this unfamiliar side of Victor. She raised an eyebrow, her tone polite but detached. "Thanks, but I'm not sick." Victor was flustered, scrambling to explain himself. "Sophia, I didn't mean anything by it. I just wanted to tell you I'm in S City too." Sophia's voice was cold and direct. "Victor, we're divorced. You don't need to tell me where you go. Also, this is a women's boutique. If you're not buying anything, please leave." Victor stood there stunned, eyes wandering aimlessly until they landed on the bright red dress displayed in the center of the store. His face lit up. "I'll buy that one. How much?" Without even lifting her head, Sophia answered flatly, $250. Victor pulled out his wallet, carefully counted out 25 crisp 10 yuan notes, and handed them to her. Money delivered to the door had no reason to be refused. Sophia accepted the bills, packaged the dress, and handed it to Victor. But he didn't take it. He kept his head lowered, voice barely audible. "I never gave you a proper gift before. This dress is for you." Without waiting for a response, he rushed out the door, afraid of hearing Sophia's rejection. "Hey!" Sophia called after him instinctively, but he was already gone. She looked at the dress and money in her hands, frowning in confusion. What exactly was Victor trying to do? After a moment of thought, she rehung the dress and kept the money. When they divorced, she had walked away with nothing, not a single cent. Now, this money, she took it with a clear conscience. After several setbacks, Romeo finally found Lara, hunched over a drafting table, sketching a design. Her gaze was sharp and focused, the pen flying across the paper with precision and elegance. She was completely immersed in her own world. Romeo was momentarily stunned. He had never realized just how mesmerizing Lara could be. As if sensing his gaze, Lara looked up, a few strands of hair falling along her cheeks, softening her already striking features. When she saw Romeo, she paused, then frowned. "What do you want?" Romeo, awkward, shook his head, then nodded. Normally eloquent with students, he now couldn't find a single word. Lara turned away coolly. "I'm working." His chest tightened. He suddenly remembered all the times Lara had come to the school to see him, and he'd snapped. "Can you stop bothering me? I'm working." "You think everyone's as idle as you?" Was that how she had felt, like this? Guilt surged inside him. He whispered, "I'll wait outside for you," then quietly stepped out. Lara stared at his retreating figure, frowning. What was with him? Still, she let it go. Work wouldn't wait. Hours passed. She sketched, erased, revised. When she finally looked up, it was already dark outside. Stretching and grabbing her bag, she stepped into the hallway, only to jump in fright at a figure in the shadows. Ah! She nearly fell, but a steady hand caught her. "Lara, are you all right?" She recognized the silhouette. Romeo again. Her voice instantly turned sharp. "You're still here?" Concern flickered in his eyes. "It's late. You shouldn't walk home alone. Let me take you." Lara let out a cold, mocking laugh. Romeo froze, because he, too, remembered. That night, at the state-run restaurant, Lara had bumped into him having dinner with Roxana. He had said the same words. "I'll take Roxana home. It's late. She's just a girl. It's not safe." Lara had asked him tearfully. "So Roxana isn't safe, but I am?" And his reply? "You and Roxana aren't the same." Romeo wished he could slap his past self. "Lara, I'm sorry." Lara's smile was icy. "Romeo, what's the point of apologizing now? We're divorced. We have nothing to do with each other. Don't come looking for me again, Lara. Keep following me and I'll call the police." Romeo froze in place, unable to speak. From that day on, he stood outside the factory every day. Sometimes he brought trendy hair clips, sometimes a tin of canned fruit, sometimes mung bean cakes. Each time, he stood outside for half an hour, then quietly placed the item inside the factory entrance and left without a word. Lara was left speechless by his persistence. One night during Victor's hospital shift, he received a call from Y City. His mother had had an incident. He and Romeo rushed home on the next train. By the time they arrived, it was too late. Kim's mother was dead. The body was cold. The house was in disarray. They immediately called the police. During questioning, they shared their suspicions. Soon after, a warrant was issued. 3 days later, Roxana was brought back in custody. As soon as Victor saw her, he roared, "Didn't you promise to take care of my mother? Why did you leave her alone?" Roxana feigned innocence. "Victor, what are you talking about? I don't know anything. What happened to Auntie?" Romeo's voice trembled with rage and grief as he yelled, "My mother is dead. You said we could leave her with you. You promised us, and you left her to die." Roxana shrugged, her face indifferent. "When did I ever promise that? She has sons, why should I, an outsider, be responsible? I don't know anything," the police officer beside her warned coldly. "Roxana, stop denying it. Witnesses saw you fleeing Kim's home in a panic with a bundle. Others overheard you arguing with the victim." Roxana froze, her face paling. She instinctively shouted back in denial. "But the law relies on evidence. There were witnesses." And a button clutched in the deceased's hand matched one from Roxana's coat. There was no way out. Romeo sobbed as he shouted, "You destroyed my marriage, and now you've killed my mother. Roxana, what did our Kim family ever do to deserve this from you?" Seeing that her lies had failed, Roxana dropped the act altogether. "You two are disgusting, both of you. You think you were faithful husbands? You let yourselves be manipulated by me. If you didn't have those thoughts, how could I have influenced you? Cowards. The both of you." That old hag got what she deserved. She wanted to torment me like she did Sophia. Think I'd take it? I'm not Sophia. You expect me to clean her shit? I should have made her eat it. Ha ha ha. Victor's face turned an ashen gray. He thought back to how his mother had treated Sophia and how he himself had handled it. He remembered clearly. She's had a hard life. Just go easy on her, okay? She's harsh with words but soft at heart. Just be patient. You're overthinking it. That's not what she meant. She's doing it for your own good. No matter what. She's still my mom. The more he remembered, the more monstrous he felt. Regret poured over him like a tide. Victor and Romeo pressed full charges against Roxana, refusing to reconcile, and demanded the harshest punishment. Eventually, Roxana was convicted of home invasion, assault, and involuntary manslaughter, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. When she was taken away, she tried to use her alleged pregnancy as a shield. I'm pregnant. You can't arrest me. But a hospital examination proved she wasn't. The police dragged her away on the spot. She shrieked one last time at the brothers. You'll never be forgiven. Sophia and Lara won't ever look at you again. You're both a joke, clowns. Victor and Romeo stood in silence, faces dark, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Sophia and Lara's factory was expanding rapidly due to overwhelming demand. They doubled their production capacity, hired more workers, and introduced new machinery to improve efficiency. Their unique designs, strict quality control, and high-grade fabrics that didn't shrink or deform won them glowing praise overseas. The embroidery, beading, and patterns featuring Chinese elements were especially beloved by foreign buyers. Their brand gained national prominence and became a leading enterprise. At the same time, many state-owned factories began to decline. The Y City broadcast station faced massive layoffs, and workers at the textile mill were being let go in large numbers. Upon hearing the news, Sophia and Lara immediately returned to Y City. When Lara told the factory director that she wanted to take over the textile mill, his eyes turned red with emotion. Lara, I knew you wouldn't forget us. The factory had always treated Lara well, and she sincerely wanted to help. She said earnestly, Director, Sophia and I will handle the technical side, but we'd like you to stay on and run operations. We also hope the former workers can return, and their pay will be several times higher than before. The director was moved to tears and nodded repeatedly. He had witnessed the mill's decades of rise and fall. Watching it decline had pained him deeply, but he had no other choice. Now, with Lara and Sophia at the helm, he felt hopeful again. Lara. On behalf of the workers, thank you. Lara waved her hands quickly. Embarrassed. Director, if you really want to thank me, bring back Uncle Yi to the cafeteria. I miss his braised pork. She stuck out her tongue playfully. The director burst into hearty laughter. Done. I'll bring him back right away, with braised pork, sweet and sour ribs, and shredded pork in garlic sauce. Sophia also reached out to the laid-off staff at the broadcast station, offering them positions at the new garment factory, with higher pay and stable jobs. People rushed to sign up. The townspeople were full of praise for Sophia and Lara. That evening, they finally got to eat the braised pork they'd been craving, their faces full of satisfaction. Hudson arrived from S-City with new equipment. All the new workers received thorough training and took the job seriously. Looking at the modern equipment, colorful fabrics, and lively workshop, everyone looked forward to the factory's official opening. Lara also announced a generous pay structure, including double overtime wages. Spirits were high. Romeo arrived amidst this bustling, prosperous scene. He knew Lara didn't want to see him, but he still came to say goodbye properly. His voice was soft and cautious. Lara, are you leaving again? Lara nodded. Calm. Once the Y-City factory is on track, Sophia and I will leave. Romeo looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to memorize her face. Lara, I know you won't forgive me. I'm going to Tibet on medical aid. I just wanted to tell you that. When the Y-City garment factory officially opened, the entrance was packed with cheering crowds. Victor stood among the crowd, watching Sophia from afar. He felt it, the distance between them growing farther and farther, a gulf he could no longer cross. As the grand opening ceremony concluded and the crowd dispersed, Victor remained frozen in place. Sophia happened to glance back. Their eyes met. Victor's Adam's apple bobbed. He was trying to swallow down something. Maybe regret. Maybe grief. Sophia, is it really true that there's no chance for us ever again? His voice trembled like a man awaiting judgment. Eyes locked on her, desperate for a verdict. Sophia met his gaze with calm indifference. Then she reached out, took Hudson's arm, and leaned in gently. She said softly, there's no chance. In that instant, the light in Victor's eyes dimmed, until finally, it vanished altogether. 6 months later, a devastating earthquake struck our city. Victor, now a volunteer doctor, joined the rescue team. During a second aftershock, he was crushed under the ruins while trying to save others. He never made it out. After handling Victor's funeral, Romeo returned to Tibet to teach. From plains to highlands, the harsh climate shift nearly broke him. Tibetan mornings were icy cold, but Romeo never feared the cold. In fact, it felt right. Only cold could keep him fully awake. He loved the Tibetan night sky. The stars there were like nothing he'd ever seen. Sometimes, when he looked up, he would think of Lara's bright, vivid eyes. When he missed her, he looked to the stars. During a confrontation with poachers, Romeo was injured. He lost his right hand. He wondered, was this karma? For everything he had done, to lose the hand he once wrote with, he would have rather died. But then he remembered Lara's radiant smile. He still wanted to see her one more time. So, he began to practice writing with his left hand. 1 year passed. His writing was still far from perfect, but it was legible. He stayed in the Tibetan region, continuing to teach, to give back. Whenever another child walked out of the mountains toward a better future, he smiled with peace. He'd lost count of the years he'd spent there. And honestly, he thought to himself, spending his whole life here wouldn't be so bad. Then came the day someone told him, a prominent female entrepreneur had made a major donation to the school. For some reason, Romeo's heart clenched. He rushed over, and with just one glance, he recognized her instantly, Lara, and beside her stood a tall man, protective, gentle. Romeo quietly lowered his gaze. Lara felt a strange heat on her back, like someone was watching. She turned, no one, only a single gently placed gesang flower resting quietly on the steps. Lara picked it up, puzzled. The principal walked over and explained. In Tibetan, gesang means happiness and bliss. Since it blooms briefly, it also means, cherish the one in front of you. Lara seemed to understand something. She looked toward the distant figure. So familiar. But when she saw the man's empty right sleeve, she paused and slowly shook her head. Lara, we should go. She smiled, lifted the flower, and turned to the man beside her. The wind picked up. He worried she'd be cold, so he quickly removed his scarf and wrapped it around her. As they walked off, arms entwined, Romeo stepped out from behind the tree. In his hand, a letter he never gave her. But that was okay. Seeing her one last time was enough. And as the wind stirred the prayer flags, he bowed his head and silently murmured, "May the one I love be forever safe and at peace."